Okay. And I'm going to jump around a little bit. I have so many things I want to talk to you about. But the first thing that I really want to say, and the first things out of my mouth really need to be, thank you. Thank you for your commitment to this community. Thank you for the personal sacrifices that I know each of you make and continue to make in one way, shape, or another in the service of our community, in our shared principles. Thank you for creating safe spaces for people to be their authentic selves, to explore who they might be. Thank you for, in many cases, assuming responsibility for the well-being of other people. Thank you for really stepping up. And thank you for believing in what I believe in. You existing in the world and doing what you do gives me all the more proof that what we're doing in the world really matters, and it does. I want to also thank, the Dirty Southern Burners were one of the first groups to sort of self-identify across city and state lines. So we really, watching what you guys did, began to get us thinking about, well, what is a region? Is it a city? Is it a state? And you broadened that perspective. So I want to thank you for that. You got us thinking in new ways about what does it mean? And it's particularly interesting now as people are working across like international boundaries now, like what does it mean now? Also, the East Coast groups like Boston and New York were the first to be working with containers in really collaborative ways. And that showed us, I think, the potential of community being generated out of different kinds of experiences and processes. And so more and more collaboration seems to be becoming important in our community. So I wanted to start with those as thank you. And I think while we're at it, I think we should thank our amazing and wonderful community, the artists, the theme camps, everybody that brings the extra special, amazing joy to our worlds. So can I get a thank-alleluia? Thank-alleluia! I'm just going to steal that one from my friend Reverend Billy, because, yeah, it feels right. So I want to start out really recognizing the contributions and from a place of gratitude, because, and we should be grateful for one another, and, yeah, thanks. Sort of part two. I want to talk about the transformative power of away events and what makes our events special. So, getting people outside their usual setting and social skins allows people to ask profound questions of the self and get in touch with their creative power. We create an oasis, a culture of yes. We invite people to engage their imaginations, explore expressive and meaningful forms of social interaction, and ask who they really want to be, and what is fundamentally important to them and to one another. We offer an alternative to a world of limitations, judgments, consumer transactions, and social divisions. And once people experience that alternative, their lives are completely ruined. They are. You can't think about life the same way. And we help people awaken to their capabilities, their authentic selves. And that leads to shifts in values and behaviors. And if enough people are doing that, then it becomes social change. The potential and the promise of what we are all doing in the world is big stuff. It really is. And it's happening. It's mind-boggling. I've watched it go from a local art gathering to become almost an international Olympics of human expression. Something that is meaningful across international boundaries and across different cultures. I'm floored and humbled by it every day. Okay, so what makes our events so special, so unique? I've asked that question of a lot of groups in the past, and I'm going to just go through very quickly a list. One is bottom-up versus top-down production styles. The community does it. It's not like a totally produced experience. Another is radically inclusive in creation as well as participation. And let me tell you, I'm going to share with you these things. I'll send them to you later in a document so you don't have to take notes. Another is that it's not a curated festival experience. Everyone is welcome to participate and be the experience. It's interactive and experientially immersive. Nurturing and service to others. Some of what happens should also suck. Example, first-time artists, quirky hybrids, what the fuck experiences. Another one that comes up a lot is that people feel safe, accepted, that they're given permission to do and to be. Another one is we have the best people in the world showing up. You know, although I like to ask, or is it that people are just at their best when we're together? A wide range of expression. Even the infrastructure can be art. And I love that because right now we've got the Bay Bridge in San Francisco covered with beautiful light art by artist Leo Villarreal and his team. And that shows we can bring that to the cities we live in also. It's a decommodified experience. And how refreshing is that in the world that we live in? Fun, 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 and more fun. Oh yeah, fun. It is. It's delightful. It's joyful. It is fun. And even when we're being really serious and doing good work in the world, we should not lose sight of that. It's often seemingly inefficient, but highly effective at generating community. It's true. And if you're nurturing a community of leaders, people have to try new things, and they may not be good at it the first time. And, you know, that's why you have things like co-leads to help, you know, make things happen. Maybe you match somebody totally new with someone that has skills. It's been described as a barn raising or a potluck of human effort versus an engineered machine. The goal isn't the event, it's the community that is created through the process. Anything else that you want to add? What else? You want to throw something out? Explosions. Explosions. Fire. I would say primarily gathering around fire. It is one of the things that does differentiate us, but we shouldn't be restricted by that at all, because we've learned that we can gather around things that don't have fire, and it's like, this is a burner event. So we have to get beyond some of the forms and the identifiers that we love. What else? Anything else?
I love the way that the whole event, especially burn specifically, but kind of shows the transient nature of everything. None of it's permanent. And build something awesome, tear it down, build a better one next year.
That is a beautiful thing to focus on. And to me, that art as lifestyle and experience versus as product, and being very present in the moment, that one principle of immediacy is foundational to everything that we do. And it blows people's minds.
The amplification of communal effort, like 1 + 1 = 3.
Ending up with more than the sum of the parts. Yeah, that is deeply inspiring to me, because I've seen how you get enough people in the room, like we all have the answers and capabilities here. Like the group that is in here is a powerhouse. Like if we all got together, worked together every day on world challenges, we'd get freaking results. And it would be crazy and more fun than what our politicians are doing. I want us to be the politicians in the world eventually. I'll probably get to that later. Yes?
I think one of the things I admire the most about it is that it provides an opportunity for us to learn how to create systems that are an alternative to the systems that exist that we don't necessarily have faith in. And so we build our capacity to administrate, but about things we actually care about. And so the creation of those alternative systems I think are a truly revolutionary challenge to the system that we kind of find ourselves living in.
Yeah, Carmen Mock from Burners Without Borders often speaks of that very same thing as sort of community resilience, that it's like local communities can do things for themselves and develop their own processes, so they're not relying on some centralized entity that may not even be grounded in the people in the place. So completely agree. So that's just sort of a flavor. We know that, you know, you can't describe it all, but I just wanted to point some of those things out as a starting point so we don't lose sight of those. Okay, the next section is called Caravansary What? So I wanted to read you a little bit on the theme that a couple of select sections from it that stick out for me. I'm going to put this over here for a moment, and I'll put that there. Here we go. Okay, so a couple lines that really stand out for me are, travelers along the Silk Route cross paths in caravansaries, a network of oases and sanctuaries that dotted the 4,000-mile road from Europe to East Asia. Then jumping further down, they were vital centers of cultural exchange. Jumping further down, the legacy to us is a grand commerce of ideas, a swirling exchange of languages, legends, technologies, philosophies, and art that help shape nearly every aspect of the modern world. Further down, this is not a tourist destination, but a home for travelers who come here bearing gifts. And then jumping further down, the only thing of value in this, quote, marketplace will be one's interaction with a fellow human being. Does that sound familiar at all? That's what you are doing. That is our events through the world. These outposts where people can go and feel inspired and culturally cross-pollinate, and these are also our efforts throughout the world. You know, we are creating these oases of culture and human expression, and we're moving through the world as these sort of caravansaries, and there will be more of that. We will be moving together as a community around and doing things, but there's other levels to get to there. So we're creating these outposts in the default world and moving caravans through it. And we hunger to be with one another in that amazing state of being we create when we're all together. However, I like to joke that with burners eagerly awaiting for the next event and traveling from event to feel inspired and home again, we are unwittingly practicing a form of religion we could call serial eventism. Waiting for the next event, waiting to be together again, waiting to feel alive and inspired. You know, we all work as hard as we do to be in that state of being. Which leads to part 4, because we're beginning to fill in the spaces and realities in between. So part 4 is called Radically Expanding Our Concept of Radical Inclusion. And I've been thinking a lot about radical inclusion in some new ways. I'm going to try to convey some of them. It's not yet fully formed, but this is sort of a stab at it. So first of all, when you know what we know, there is a responsibility that goes along with having that knowledge. That's the good and bad news. You know, like when you know what you know and how good it is, you can't just turn your back on it. So the first phase is often that we offer that mind-blowing experience we had to others. We become caretakers of newbies and the experience we loved, as you all have. The next phase is to bring that into our cities. There should be a relationship between the away experience and the cities we live in every day. This is harder to do, but it's the next logical step, and we're beginning to do it. And part of that message has to be, don't wait. Don't wait. Our transformational events are essential to offering people an awakening, as we all have had. We want lots of people to have those experiences and be delighted and change in positive ways. We have to continue to be good caretakers of them, and radical inclusion is fundamental here. If we are to realize any kind of social transformation in the long term, we really must include young and old alike, kids and grandparents, burners and newbies, and continue to lay out a welcome mat for people. And I've also been thinking about radical inclusion, as I mentioned, in some new ways lately. We must include our whole selves and not separate our lives as burners at our events from citizens of some place that is not home other times. We have to be home wherever we are in the world. And that's a personal challenge. That means like behaving on the street the way you would at Transformis, at Alchemy, at Reclamation in Black Rock City. It's like living it every day. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I want to reinforce that. If you're having those thoughts, I believe it's right. And it's the only logical step as people that have had the experiences we have. I love that some of our community has started calling the default world the extended playa instead of the default world. We have to push ourselves to do a bit more every day in life, but how? Well, for one, I predict more hybrid public art / events. like one-day events in downtowns that inaugurate maybe a temporary art platform. It kicks off with a huge art installation, a big social gathering hoo-ha. Then maybe it becomes a place to host community gatherings. Maybe it becomes a meeting place while it's there. And then there's a big closing. You know, that's one form, and that's happening. And I can suggest that that is one form that can be replicated. Doing this will naturally turn some of you into year-round arts advocates in your towns. Others will join art and planning commissions. And Burners will increasingly help shape and set art and expression policies in cities as we seek to create conditions that are more like Black Rock City, Transformers, Alchemy, Firefly, Serendipity, PDF, all of the events that are represented here and more. And this is around the world. I just came back from South Africa, where I went for a vacation because I've met so many wonderful Burners there, and I took some of my family there. And it means as much to a group this size. I talked to 30 people in Johannesburg, and they're all amazing people that are as excited by this and are as bonded to you. So sometimes, we may feel that we exist in our own worlds. What I'd really like you to know is that we are connected from Lithuania to China, all ends of the spectrum and on every continent. We're not alone. It's fucking great. And let's see, what else? I wanted to also just share an interesting aspect, since I mentioned South Africa, an interesting story around radical inclusion that I'm still processing. So when I was there, Nelson Mandela died, and they had the memorial ceremonies. And so I was reading a lot and hearing a lot of stories. And one of the stories that really stuck with me was that after he got out of 26 years of confinement, and he was eventually elected to office, what he was expected to do was to immediately fire the entire past administration, which would have been all white, and in his world was the default world. And the first week passed, nobody got fired. He brought in, a team of people, but he didn't fire people. Second week, third week. Finally, the members of the white staff came to him and said, we must have a meeting. And he said, well, can you tell me what this is about? It's like, well, we simply want to know. He's like, know what? When we will be laid off and replaced so that we may make our plans. And he said to them, you're doing your job. I'm pleased with the way that you're serving our country. So until you do otherwise, you have your job and do it well. And he mixed the administration. He had his people, and he had white South Africans that were part of apartheid, part of the problem. If he had not done that, South Africa would not have changed. So there is a very powerful example of radical inclusion, and I'm still trying to learn from it. But it speaks of change from within. And another thing that they said that was really quite beautiful and profound was that Mandela not only helped free captives, but he freed his jailers. And he invited one of his jailers, or a number of them, to his inaugural address. He was absolutely inclusive in what he did. And I was telling the Joburg people, I know Mandela didn't come to any of our events, but Mandela was a burner. I just want to share that with you, because as I'm thinking about including our whole selves, including the default world, including, just being present and bringing it all year round, that was a story that sort of stuck with me. I'm like, that was special. That led to some big change. And let me say also, I'm not insinuating that we should have every plug and play camp, come and do stuff. I want people to work for the experience. There's a balancing point when they come to our events and stuff. But as we move through the world, we have to think about how to bring our special sauce with us into the world and spice it up. And I'll tell you, it will lead to, who doesn't want to come and hang out with us? It's fun. It's great. And we get things done. And we're learning how to do it better. Okay, the next section is, actually, just to end that, some of you have heard me say this, but kind of a little tagline I like to say is that there is no default world unless we default. And somewhere between there is no default world unless we default and we're living on an extended playa is a new way of thinking about doing and being and our larger role in the world. Part 5 is what's up with that project thingy? So I wanted to just give you a little brief overview. Black Rock City LLC is being moved into the nonprofit Burning Man project. That was approved end of December. There'll be more formal announcements. The regional network people already know this, but that was a big major step, and we've been spending a lot of time with like, how does the Black Rock City LLC event relate to the nonprofit and the larger objectives in the world, and how do you deal with the organizational separateness, and how is this all going to work, and when? So just as Alchemy went through lots of organizational things, we've been also going through organizational challenges and trying to put in place a structure that can achieve our goals in the larger world and support our community. I can tell you that the Black Rock City Art Team, the Black Rock Arts Foundation, my own community events team in the Bay Area we're in a new headquarters with open floor plans. We're all next to one another, and we're already working together much more to really think from start to finish, like before the playa, on playa, after, and even like all permutations of that, how to work together from sort of start to finish. So it's our hope that thinking about our experience with giving art grants, that we'll be able to do things that support artists before Burning Man, at Burning Man, and then already thinking about where to place that art in the world afterwards. This is basically a time of figuring out how best to bring the context and conditions of Black Rock City into everyday life, and we're organizing and reorienting our operations and capabilities to focus more on off-playa. Time check. Okay, because I was going to read something to you that was sort of prepared about some of the things that Burning Man Project has been doing, but I'm going to summarize them in the interest of time a little bit. So, in short, Burning Man Project received its 501c3 status as a charitable organization in 2012, and it has really focused on 3 areas to start with. One was outreach and talking about what the message is and shifting gears and orientation. One has been building the organizational structure needed. Another has been testing what we've been calling demonstration projects, things that we might do that are replicatable in other places, things that would address scalability, moving art and experiences around. One of those was the YES project, which stands for Youth Education Spacecraft, which was a fusion of public art project and youth education program where artists Dana Albany worked with several different schools and school kids to create this spaceship with their, and it had all these tiles and art all over it. It was based on their conceptions of outer space or their visions for space. And it ended up being a really fun project. And the end result was so great that it's sort of been touring around as public art and everywhere it goes, interacting with school kids. So that's been kind of a cool, interesting hybrid experience for us. Another one, Burning Man Project, also contracted to do some consulting work for the Downtown Project in Los Angeles to advise on bringing more art and civic engagement in downtown Vegas. I love that because I have often said I think we have more in common with urban planners than we do with other events. And I want us to be shaping cities and city policies more. So it's a weird thing in some ways for us, but we got to be open to that stuff. Another kind of cool thing that happens separately from Burning Man Project was that Black Rock Arts Foundation, although it also came in through the project. You know, we're all just Burning Man. That's the other thing I want to say is we're all just Burning Man. Okay, it's just figuring out the buckets, but we're going to represent ourselves in the world as Burning Man doing this stuff. The Black Rock Arts Foundation also helped with a Percent for Art program thing with a development group on Marketplace that had a very sizable budget to dedicate to art as part of their building thing, and we helped advise. We gave them a number of suggestions and helped them select, and they selected a piece by artist Brian Goggin, who's a member of our community, to do this major, beautiful installation of glass pianos based on Caruso's dream that he had in San Francisco during the 1906 earthquake. And so we might end up, being, you guys will end up being a source when people want to put up interesting art or create experiences in cities. So we're gonna start acting as sort of arts consultants and be on arts commission boards and city plannings more and more. A current priority for the Burning Man Project is really beefing up educational and training efforts and getting better at offering tools and online training and capturing our knowledge, not having it all, like recording everything and putting online pods for people that can't be there. And we want to really roll out learning more throughout the whole network. The Global Leadership Conference remains a really big priority for us as well, because we've seen such tremendous value come out of that. And we want more of that content to be captured and shared with larger groups, but eventually also to broaden that in person so more and more people can attend it as well. Okay, great. And we're still figuring things out, and we want to work with the regional network as this all develops, and you're all a part of it. So in a nutshell, I just wanted to touch on a couple of those things because we did have a couple of big announcements. I'll give you a couple of examples of the way that we're thinking as well. And we're all part of a communal brain. I've seen this on the regionals list where ideas get shared. And someone mentioned challenges reinventing the game sometime. Use your regional contacts, if you're not one yourself, to ask questions, to post out to the regional announce list. Ask me as a resource if I've seen this challenge before and how groups have dealt with it. We want to be supportive, and we want you guys to really thrive in the world. Okay, so along those lines, I wanted to read off a couple of common event pitfalls and then sort of get on with the sharing in the program. So these were ones that have been identified over the years, and I think some of you might be able to relate to them. One is trying to grow too quickly. Crystal alluded to that. Another one that always comes up is not allowing a long enough production cycle. We're always like, hurrying up at the end to catch up with stuff. Some of your events have grown so big, you need almost a full year production cycle. Doing it all yourself, not delegating. I heard that mentioned also. Overproducing or curating. I'm going to make this the coolest one ever. Sound familiar? It's tempting. Tempting. I've been there. Not about that. I like to joke, it's not the size of your event, it's what your community does with it. Failing to communicate your needs and process to the team and participants, not letting them know how they can help you. That relates to transparency, which we're going to be touching on. Not realizing people with different agendas will see your website and communication materials. Example, members of the media, neighbors, police, fire department, insurance agents that are deciding whether or not they're going to pick up your policy. And even lawyers representing a case against you after something unthinkable has happened. So you have to really be smart about that, and I think we're going to touch on this in the transparency section as well. Inadequate budget planning or lacking financial transparency with appropriate checks and balances. Particular challenge as we're doing more and more things every year. It's not just keeping track of one thing, it's keeping track of many projects and maintaining financial transparency and managing community assets in a much more complicated way than we've had to do previously. Another one is copying Burning Man when it's not the same scale or conditions you need to respond to. A lot of you have very unique environments and have to respond to that. Reinventing the wheel annually because don't document and revise operating manuals, the process, the budgeting or other tools. This is why, one of our requirements is wrap up your event. We used to say firm 30 days. We understand your events have gotten so long and so complex. It takes like 90 days, whatever it does. But do it fast, people. Please. I'm not trying to be a jerk when I tell you that. If you don't do it right away, it's like impossible to go back because we're all tired afterwards. Right? Everybody's tired. We poured our heart and soul out. Last thing you want to do is go find the receipts that we threw in the corner. Find the receipts in the corner and write down your successes and challenges right away. Get your team together and capture the successes and challenges neutrally. Don't get into them. Don't try to solve them. Capture them all. List them while they're all still fresh, and then fall down. And get your afterburns out so you don't have to, it's not this oh God, we didn't do it and I can't remember, or yeah. Point made. Okay. Forgetting it's about the way you do things together and not the things you check off the list. And I'll just share with you, sometimes I can get so intense, even like organizing our own our decompression event in San Francisco, which has grown to be over 10,000 people. And that is an event that takes, it was like an 8-month production cycle between the permits and all that stuff. I sometimes am like, oh, is that done? Is that done? Is that done? Everything's got to be about the human relationships, how you're doing things, and keeping it fun and positive for yourself and for other people. So those are some of the common pitfalls, and I have a feeling we're going to be touching on some of them at this. I'm also going to share with you all after this. I'm going to send a list of what I call my tips document with some of the most common challenges that people have faced and the ways that different regional groups have dealt with them. This is something I compiled from the community workshops. So I'm not saying I did all of this, but this may be helpful if you have a particular issue, just to see how have others dealt with it and how are some ways of thinking about it or some tips. And I think that from those sorts of things, we can really learn to avoid repeating some of the same pitfalls. So enough of what I have to say. We're here to learn from one another. We're here to have fun. If you have questions, I'm going to be around. We really want to be supportive. I want to be supportive of you all. You also have to be supportive of one another as a community. So this kind of roundtable thing is excellent for that. I'd encourage you to stay in touch with one another as peers, as people that can really help one another learn. And I think we have to have a commitment to not just doing, but to mentoring others, and to a form of leadership that is almost always trying to replace ourselves in roles so we can do other things and expand ourselves in life. So I just wanted to share that perspective. I know I jumped around a bit, but I wanted to touch on a couple different areas. And I think at this point, we're going to get right into content, and I'm going to get out of the way so I can learn from you guys. So thank you.